Have you ever noticed how so many of the world's creation stories feel, well, kind of familiar? There's always a powerful god, some huge battle, rules get laid down from on high. So, in this explainer, we're going to peel back the layers of these ancient tales to see what's really hidden inside. And spoiler alert, it's not just origin stories, it's blueprints for power. Let's get into it. And that brings us right to our big question. I mean, think about it. The creation stories you know, from Zeus to the god of Genesis. Why is there almost always this single dominant figure at the very top, a being who comes in, defeats chaos, and sets the rules for everybody else? This pattern shows up across so many different cultures and continents, and you've got to ask yourself, why? It is definitely not an accident. Well, the answer is that these aren't just quaint little stories about where the mountains and rivers came from. No, they are social blueprints. You can think of them like a society's founding constitution, a core narrative that establishes the fundamental rules for power, for gender, for our place in the world. And it does it in a way that makes all those rules seem natural, sacred, and completely unquestionable. Okay, so let's start digging into the first layer of this blueprint, how these myths set up the whole relationship between gods, gender, and, who gets to call the shots. When you look closely, you start to see two basic models for divine power pop up again and again. On one side, you have the Earth Mother archetype. Think someone like Gaia in Greek mythology. Her power is primordial, it's ancient, it's raw, it literally springs from the earth itself. She is life. But then, on the other side, you've got the Sky Father. His power is what you'd call transcendent. It's above the physical world. It's all about bringing order and authority. And here's the key. His rule is often established through some kind of conflict or violence. And you can see the tension between these two models play out in so many of these huge, influential myths, right? In Greek myth, Kronos overthrows his father, the sky. In Mesopotamian stories, the god Enlil violently splits heaven and earth apart. The pattern here is pretty clear. It's a shift away from that primordial, feminine, creative power and a move toward a new order that's defined by assertive, male authority. And this brings us to the next layer of the blueprint, which is how these epic divine dramas get used to justify some very human social structures right here on Earth. The key concept we need to understand here is social legitimation. It sounds a little academic, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It's this powerful process where society uses its sacred stories to basically say, hey, the way our world is set up with a king on top or with these specific social classes, that wasn't just some human idea. Nope, it's a direct reflection of the divine order. It's how the gods wanted it to be. It's a way of turning a political arrangement into a sacred truth. So how does this actually work in practice? Well, it's often this kind of three-step playbook. First, the myth lays out a perfect hierarchical order up in the heavens, among the gods. Second, it places a human ruler, a king, a pharaoh, whoever, as the direct representative or even a descendant of those gods right here on Earth. And third, the entire social pyramid underneath that ruler is then justified as just a mirror of that perfect heavenly structure. And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. Take Hesiod's Theogony, the famous family tree of the Greek gods. It's way more than just a collection of cool stories. As scholars have pointed out, it actually functions as political legitimation. By laying out this clear divine family tree and hierarchy, it gave a sacred model that justified the power of the ruling aristocratic families in ancient Greece. Their power wasn't just a power grab, it was an inheritance, one that reflected the cosmos itself. Okay, so beyond human society, these blueprints also define a much, much bigger relationship, our place within the entire natural world. And here again, we find two totally competing models. A lot of Western and Near Eastern stories put humanity at the very top of a pyramid, with this divine instruction to rule over nature. The world becomes a resource, something for us to dominate and exploit. But then you have many indigenous traditions that present a completely different picture. It's a web, not a pyramid. And in this view, humans are partners with nature, just one part of a huge interdependent system with a responsibility to take care of it, not to dominate it. A really fantastic example of this partnership model is the Iroquois Sky Woman myth. It's just such a powerful counter-narrative. The story is centered on a female creator, Sky Woman, who doesn't conquer or command anything. She falls from the sky and she collaborates with animals, with muskrats and turtles, to literally build the earth on the back of a giant turtle. It's a foundational story built entirely on cooperation and mutual dependence, not hierarchy. Now, to make all these ideas really concrete, let's actually apply them to a specific case study, a really interesting creation myth from the Philippines. So this is the story of Malakas and Maganda, the first man and the first woman who emerged from a single stalk of bamboo. Now, the names themselves are the blueprint. Malakas means the strong one. He represents action, being the initiator, the leader. Maganda means the beautiful one, and she represents a more passive role, that of the companion, the follower. So you see, this simple origin story subtly encodes a traditional gender hierarchy right into the fabric of creation itself.
Okay, so let's pull all these different threads together and get back to our original question. Why is there almost always a dominant figure right at the top? Here it is. Here's the bottom line. The dominant figure in a creation myth isn't just a character. That figure is the anchor. They are the divine linchpin that holds the entire blueprint in place, justifying the gender roles, the social hierarchy, and the ecological order that a particular culture sees as natural.
And that leaves us with one last thought. These ancient myths are obviously powerful, but we are surrounded by our own modern stories, in our movies, in our political speeches, in our advertising. So the real question for us is this: what invisible blueprints are being encoded in the stories we tell ourselves right now, today? And what kind of world are they building?